We're Dwight Eisenhower Junior High School. Out of our students, we have many different cultures, many different ethnic groups. We're about 35 to 40% minority, so we are a very diverse population. Come on, 1 minute, let's go, 1 minute! We have 6 computers in every classroom. Now, if we have about 24 kids in a classroom and we do stations of 4, each kid works by themselves. A lot of times we'll do something, I do this a lot, where we'll work with partners. We'll do a cooperative learning. So 2 will go onto a computer. So you'll have 12 on a computer, 12 at their desk working, and then let's say it's a 2-day assignment. They each work 1 day and then they switch.
Looking back on what we've gotten done in the last year is incredible. One of the things I think is most pleasing is just to see their level of confidence in themselves as readers, I think. I think that for the most part, these are kids who traditionally, you know, didn't like reading, didn't want to read. You know, it was something that was not a pleasant experience for them. And so this kind of makes them feel like they can actually do it.
We are right at the end of the Civil War in my classroom. So what we did is we took a look at making posters or political cartoons on the re-election of Abraham Lincoln of 1864. We had some map work. I always like to include map work in every chapter. We did some map work on some of the battles that ended the Civil War. We did some work on vocabulary, which I think is very important. And then we were on the computers with a website that I have found that deals with the conspiracy of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And what our students were doing is that they were reading this and getting information. And a lot of times we'll write like bullet statements where, like I said, when you find something you like, put a little bullet statement, sum it up in 5 to 6 words, you can get a lot done. And then they're going to take this and they're going to put it into a newspaper article, like they're an investigative reporter, and they're going to write this article about how they uncovered this plot to assassinate President Lincoln, Vice President Johnson, Secretary of State Seward. One of the things that I think has become a little bit more important as part of my job is that I have to go on before we go on, and I have to make sure that the websites that we're on are appropriate, because you can go to type in assassination of Abraham Lincoln, which is what we were doing in my classroom, and you know, you may get some really good sites. You might get some sites, you know, there's one that says, you know, I am not an educator, but this is what I think. Well, you know, I want something with a little bit more meat behind it. And that gives us a little bit more control over what our kids see. But that's part of our job, I think, is to make sure that use it and use it wisely. What I tell them when they use Kurzweil, try and do like about a short paragraph, read it, and then go over it a second time. So listen the first time, do it a second time, follow along, and then I want you to get 1 or 2 main ideas that you just learn from that paragraph. All those attacks kind of happen simultaneously. This is what these guys are going to do. Who's going to kill the president? Surratt's going to kill the vice president. Axelrod's going to kill the vice president, and Powell's going to kill the Secretary of State, all around the same time. So this is like a terrorist organization from the South. Now what I want you to do is take this and write it into a story about what you just learned. And we have a real good success rate in the kids doing something like that, because we break it down in the steps. We listen to it first, we follow along, and then we write down what we learned.
Today's centers, they were doing anything from the one center they were using Kurzweil, where they're doing the raft. A raft is where they have a role, an audience, a particular format, and then a topic. So they were highlighting as they're looking for things that were particular to the North or the South. I told them to try and make a decision before, maybe, so that you know what you're looking for as far as what role they were going to choose. In another, they're graphing some of the statistics of the different battles in the Civil War. And then I like to always take it a little bit further to kind of analyze the data instead of just presenting it. So they were using Excel for that, to do a graph. And after they did that, they compared that to World War II as far as the total number, and then we're visiting 2 other links that I had on there. In kind of a WebQuest type of way, I provided 2 links that really had the specific information about why the 2 wars might have had differences in the casualties, and what were some reasons. And so then they had to include a paragraph written response, if you will, for their ideas on that. They're doing political cartoons. which at first is very difficult. I start with that kind of a whole class activity because I think understanding cartoons, especially 7th grade, is difficult. So, but at this time of the year, they're really great at it. So they were analyzing 2 of them from the Civil War and then creating their own music, because music was such an important thing at this time of the country's history in the North and the South, and kind of really symbolized a lot of what they were about and so on. So they're looking at some of the biggest songs, Dixie and so on, and listening to those and making some analysis. The video was Gettysburg, and just the particular point of Pickett's Charge. So what they were doing is looking at it, because Pickett's Charge really, I think, first of all, was one of the bloodiest battles, Gettysburg, you know, of the war. And so what they were doing is illustrating what they saw there as they were watching the actual battle occur. We will end up at the part of the war to see, you know, how do we think the North won, and to really gain a perspective on what were some of the reasons. And some of the centers are looking at things and they're saying, well, I don't understand why the South didn't win. I mean, look at this, you know. And so we'll look at other aspects as to what played into that as to why they didn't. So at the end, I hope that they have formulated an opinion on one way or the other.
I want them to be able to think. That's what I want my kids to do. I want them to be able to take an issue, know both sides of the issue, not just the side they support, understand both sides of the issue. I want them to understand history. I want them to know that things happen for a reason. And they're going to say that if certain things could have happened, history would have been changed completely. I really stress the idea of reading newspapers to my kids. I said, history is everyday facts. You don't know when the great history event's going to happen. That's why you have to read the newspapers. You have to know what's going on. You have to discuss. You have to debate. You have to listen to both sides. And that's what I try and teach my kids in social studies. Like I said, my philosophy, teach everyone to the best of their ability, and that sounds great, but I really believe that. I want them to be able to understand what they're seeing on TV, why the world is this way. And I think the internet and technology really helps that.
I think that their progress throughout the year is just phenomenal, because they, you know, once they get that confidence, they, you know, they kind of shut down the I can't do it, and it is just a I can do, and they go from there and just kind of blow your mind at what they're able to do. We take a lot of risks, you know. We probably put some, you know, money behind a lot of things that other districts might not be so, you know, quick to jump at. But I think that the results we're seeing are going to show that it's definitely worth it. And I see it every day in my classroom.